Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 18 of Nerdacity podcast. And my guest today is poet, visual artist, writer, author, and media professional, Keisha-Gaye Anderson. Keisha is based in Brooklyn, New York. She is the author of Gathering the Waters, Everything is Necessary, and A Spell for Living, which received the Editor's Choice recognition for the Luminous Origin Literary Award, and is forthcoming from Agape Editions as a multimedia ebook, including music and Keisha's original artwork. Keisha's poetry, fiction, and essays have been widely published in national literary journals, magazines, and anthologies, which includes Kweli Literary Journal, Small Axe Salon, Interviewing the Caribbean, Renaissance Noir, The Caribbean Writer, The Killins Review of Arts and Letters, Mosaic Literary Magazine, and others. Keisha is a past participant of the Vona Voices and Callaloo Writing Workshops, a former fellow of the North Country Institute for Writers of Color, and was shortlisted for the Small Axe Literary Competition. In 2018, Keisha was selected as a Brooklyn Public Library Artist in Residence. Her visual art has been featured in exhibitions in the tri-state area and in such literary journals as the Adirondack Review, Joint Literary Magazine, and No Dear Magazine. Keisha holds an MFA in creative writing from the City College CUNY. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband and 2 children. Learn more about Keisha at Keisha-Gaye.inc. Thanks for listening.
Hello.
Hi, Keisha. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast for this Focused Friday edition.
All right. No, it's my pleasure.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. And you sound wonderful as well.
Okay,
so
good.
I want to congratulate you on your latest book, A Spell for Living. Is that
Thank
correct?
you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yep, that's it.
I love the merging of your beautiful visual art with the poetry. It makes it a visual as well as a cerebral experience for the reader.
Yes. I believe in all kinds of storytelling. So I'm like, let's give it all we got. Put everything out there.
Wonderful. And so can you tell me, can we walk backwards to your beginnings as a poet and writer, how you started and some of what has been inspiring you over the years, and then we'll come back forward to your books.
Okay, sure. So I think poetry and writing has always been my first mode of self-expression, even from childhood. And I didn't call myself a poet really until college, and I went to Syracuse. I started, doing some readings here or there. I was really nervous about being on stage. But I got a warm reception. I got warmed up and I got used to it. And I remember being, I would say I just graduated from college and I went over to the New Eurekan one night, for open mic. And I waited until about 2 a.m. To get on the stage. It was the first time I ever really read on stage there. And it was just such a great experience, a warm reception. And I just started doing that more, and I became a part of this awesome community, and more importantly, a literary tradition that has nurtured me and has just helped me to grow as a person, But yeah, I mean,
That's, mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's wonderful. And I can really kind of picture your journey, much like the journey of many poets who it's like you already have that natural talent, but you're
Mm-hmm.
also open to, mentorship and learning the craft and all of that.
Oh yeah, you gotta be, because I'm very my friends of mine tease me. I'm very practical, for an artist because and I think that's probably how I am as a parent. But if I were learning to carve furniture, I would have to learn from somebody. I mean, I might have, but I have to learn how it works, right? And I'm not bound by structure or form, but I have to have a proficiency in like the rules of the tradition that I'm operating in, and then I can abstract it. And my visual art is abstract, so I do believe in respecting the tradition and learning from people, and then experimenting.
Wow, that's wonderful. And so, how has it been for you? I know that I met you in Brooklyn at one of the events. And so, tell me, what do you love about the Brooklyn poetry and art scene? How has being in that environment fed you as an artist?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's so many changes. And now here we are in this quarantine, which is just really,
Yes.
it really sucks. But, I was born in Jamaica and I grew up in Southeast Queens, right? Very suburban, sort of bedroom
Hmm.
community. There are no public social spaces in those kind of neighborhoods except the supermarket, right? So I after I came back from college, I was like, I need to live in a place where I can be near cultural institutions and meet other artists and socialize and be in the public space and talk to people. And so I moved to Brooklyn. I should back up. I was born in Jamaica. My family, when they first came here, they did live in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn, and then they moved out to Queens. So I spent like my adolescence and teen years in Queens. But then I came back, and it was just a great mixture of people, I would say in the late 90s and the 2000s, just a great vibe of you just felt like we were creating new things that would be around for a long time. And you could see, just look at Erica Badu's career trajectory. I mean, she was operating in and around here in that time frame as
Yeah.
well. So there were a lot of people, lots and lots of people I know, and some people have gone to Broadway. Some people are in film. Some people are still doing the live poetry events, or they're writing books, what have you. And I wanted to be a part of that, and have many deep friendships, that have resulted from just being present when everything's going on. Just being in the place.
Wow. That sounds wonderful. And Keisha, you and I have something in common. So I was born in Brooklyn. However, right after I was born, we moved to Queens,
Uh,
specifically Jamaica,
yeah,
Queens.
there it is.
Um, so I partly grew up in Queens, and then the rest of my upbringing was in the Midwest. But
Mhm.
that Queens connection is strong in terms of with
Yep.
artists, in addition to Brooklyn.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
And really interesting, my sister was born on the same day as the rapper
Okay.
Fabulous in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I always tease her about that, like, okay, you and this rapper were born on the same day. Y'all was probably in the same room.
Right.
So we always joke about, just the connection is the six degrees of separation,
Right.
with New York folks is really interesting.
And it's just interesting to look at lineage too, like where if you look at it over time, like where people are coming from, and like in some cases their parents cross paths. Some of these artists, just like it's just interesting to see the connections because there's just something that is being passed on there. Yeah, I mean, if you listen to hip hop and what's sampled, it's just like, what were the parents listening to? How is this information being passed on, and then people are using that to innovate? That's so interesting to me.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So true. And so, Keisha, then going back to your performance work, how have you, because I know as you mentioned, like some of your peers and my peers as well, went off into, went from performance to then, they were doing Broadway or doing movies,
Hmm.
or like we know about Sarah Jones, who did a lot of the Broadway plays, and then you have all the poets that went to Def Poetry, and you have
Mm-hmm.
Lemon Anderson and Mums who went to, film and things like that, Saul Williams. And so, how did you know that you would continue to be in the literary tradition as opposed to just primary performance
Oh, I
based?
knew that early on because I was, a little bit in the slam circuit early on, and I knew immediately that it was not for me. It's not my personality. I'm an artist
Mm-hmm.
in the very traditional sense of what you think of in terms of
Yeah.
number one. Sometimes I am very social, but people would be surprised how much I prefer to be solitary and just work with my
Right.
art.
But I can tell that about
Yeah.
you. You have a look on your face, and there's an energy about you that's like serious, but also like, I need my serene,
Yeah.
peaceful, quiet time to sit and write, because you know what? You can't really get it done if you're always out in the street
Hmm.
and you're always on stage. How the heck are you
Right.
writing?
And that's the thing. It's like if anything, I don't have any problem at all being on stage. I have no fears around that.
Hmm.
That's easy for me but to do, but it's more about I have always been about the spiritual connection. That's kind of like what drives me, like the energy I get, the what transforms in that room between me and the audience. Like what is the energy flow? That is what
Hmm.
I study. That informs my visual art too. That's just like what I'm interested in. And so I can enjoy the competitive nature of slam and the, performance. That's an art unto itself, but it was not, and don't get me wrong, when I give a reading, it's not boring, but it's just not what I wanted to do.
Right.
Right. So,
No, I know what you mean. Some people literally made a career out of
right,
that,
right.
and some went far into things, and then some you don't know where, whatever happened. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Hmm. So I wanted to, my thing was always, and I tell people this, is to just be at peace with whatever process you're in and honor like what you're learning in the process. So I'm not going to compare myself to anybody or say, I wish I would have done this or that. I mean, maybe, there are ways I could have gone, but I'm going where I'm supposed to go. And I'm satisfied with that because also I'm a parent. You don't get a do-over with that, and that is my primary role on this earth, like the art and the parenting. That's what I do. And when
Totally.
my kids came, obviously I felt very blessed, and I love being a parent and enjoying those moments with them. So I said, okay, I have to provide. So I've always kept a full-time job. I have to do my art, so I make space for that, and I have to be with them. And so all these things got to happen at the same time, which means that perhaps the books are going to move more slowly, and that's okay with me because they're going to
Hmm.
grow up. I mean, it's moved. My son is 16 already. It's moving.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
mean, it's
Yeah.
just going so fast, and my daughter's going to be 13
Wow.
in a 2 months, and so
Oh my gosh, but they're
I
still
know.
young. That's the good. They're still
Yeah,
young. They still need
right.
you. You
But
know what I mean? Yeah.
I didn't have them terribly young, but I didn't have them old. So I mean, when they're grown up, I still have time for me. There will still be time, you know, um,
Hmm.
to do what I want to do. I'm not worried about that. Was more concerned about building a foundation for my family, especially growing up in a working class family where there were a lot of like financial struggles. Happy family, but it's just struggles. i
Hmm.
i'm
Yeah.
very I was very affected by that, and I'm probably overly cautious because of that, but I just want to be comfortable. I want to know where my money's coming from. I want to be in my home. I want the
Right.
comfort. I want everybody to be comfortable, and then I can relax, because if I'm insecure I can't relax. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
makes sense. And you know what? Women are so keen with those things. We are always first trying to make sure that everyone else is good, and I can totally understand that. You have to lay your foundation and do your
Hmm.
nesting and make sure your nest is
Yep.
good. So I can totally understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And go ahead.
So,
Go
and
ahead.
mhm. I was just going to say, so that's even more amazing that you've been able to continue to focus on your art, in that it's been steady, it seems, for the
Oh
most
yeah,
part at
I make
least.
goals. So and I tell people this every year. No, it would be like every year apply to a fellowship. 3 times a year get published in a literary journal. And that formula has worked for me. Or, and it's like, okay, once every other month do a reading, go to an event. And that's how I pace my schedule out, and it works. It has worked for me. And hopefully as things evolve, I'll have more time, to go more deeply, because the older I get, I want to really delve more deeply into my art, because we all want to see what we're capable of doing. We want to see fully, but
Yes.
I'm also, you see, the thing is, the careers that I've chosen also nurture me, because I'm in communications. I was a journalist. I, you know,
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah.
I remember you. I think we've discussed
hmm
that. That's right. You've
Yeah,
done
I've
a
produced
lot.
television. I still have an interest
Mhm.
in those things. I've worked on films. I've written for television. I've been a field producer. I've written for a bunch of consumer magazines, journalistic writer. And then for the past
Mhm.
decade, well, more than a decade, I've been running communications and marketing in like the higher ed and nonprofit space. So I'm learning there too. I'm also learning how to market myself as an artist. It's not, it helps me
Mm.
to think about what I can do when I'm ready, because I don't have a team per se. I do now. I have a few great interns who I hired who are really talented, but I didn't before. I was like doing everything by myself, you know.
Yeah. And so is that something that is on your wish list for 2021? When people talk about goals, resolutions, vision board, get an
Oh yeah, no, I
assistant.
have two young ladies I work with who maintain my social media and do design and animation for me, and that's good. They're great. And yeah, I mean, my thing now that I'm looking toward is just, I'm always looking at um, opportunities that will teach me something and expand my mind. Like, so I've
Mm-hmm.
never, my path hasn't
Mm.
really been driven by titles. I don't really care about, I've always been in leadership roles, interestingly, like, and I think it's just my personality. I'm very reliable, I'm organized, and I'm a good leader. But I've been driven by,
Mm-hmm.
what can I learn at this place? Like, what can it teach me? Where will it take me in the world? I loved working when I was at CBS News. I used to travel a lot all over the country to shoot
Mm-hmm.
these documentaries, and I would never have otherwise gone to these places or met these celebrities. I recall interviewing the late John Lewis in his office, and I would
Oh,
never ever in a
wow.
million, like, when would I have had an occasion to have just a human conversation with him? And that's how accessible he was. He would just, I knew
Exactly.
that I come from middle class status, and there these different circles that I would not have access to. So I wanted to learn. And what it taught me, honestly, one of the biggest takeaways of all of these travels, I've interviewed Greg Louganis, Burt Reynolds, I've met Jerry Seinfeld, I've met all these wonderful people. And the biggest takeaway is that
Mm.
they are absolutely no different than you or me. So therefore, there's no
Mm-hmm.
reason for us to doubt our creative potential. The only thing we don't have, and most of the time, is access. That's what we don't have. We don't have access, but
Mm-hmm.
we can learn how to maneuver, and maybe you'll get some access. But if you have no clue of how any of these things work, you won't even know where to begin. So that was
That's
very
true.
useful for me, to learn about different people. And I wouldn't have been in Burt Reynolds' home like for any reason. But I went to
Oh,
his home, and
wow.
it's just very, he passed away not too long. Well, no, maybe it was long after that. Maybe it's probably a
Yeah.
decade after that. But he was already out of the public
Mm-hmm.
eye.
It's true. Yeah. He had been for a
Yeah.
while. I remember
So
that. Mm-hmm.
that that was awesome, and I loved that, and I loved writing. I wrote for Honey magazine when all the Black women magazines were a thing.
Oh, I love Honey. Oh my gosh. I used to
Yeah.
save all the copies. Like, they had all the hot artists on the cover. I remember I saved the one with
Hmm.
Ananda Lewis. I saved the one with, boy, a lot of singers and actresses,
Oh
really
yeah, I
great
can tell you,
interviews.
I'll tell you right now, weird connection. This is how life works, and this is how you know you're following your spirit, right? I wrote an article for Honey about
Hmm.
Black women and depression, and yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
then a few weeks later, the editor, I believe my editor was Deneen Milner at that time, and Deneen, yeah.
Oh, probably so. I remember Amy Du Bois Barnett was editor in chief, but
Yes, and I
Deneen worked
worked
there as
closely with her,
well.
but
Yeah.
she sent me a letter to the editor where a young woman wrote to the magazine and said, I was thinking of attempting suicide again, and I read your article and I went and called one of the therapists in the resources that we provided instead. And I kept that letter and I kept it in a scrapbook because today, so many years later, the work I do, my 9 to 5 work, is a suicide prevention organization. So, you
Wow.
gotta, you're
Mm,
led. I believe this. I believe, I was just watching a video with the late Cicely Tyson, rest her soul, and
mm. Yes.
yes, and
Art
she was
rest her
talking
soul.
about being
Yes.
divinely guided, like very specifically about listening to her intuition. And that has been a big thing for me, a big, big thing. So it's funny how
Mm,
things connect over time. And then you look back. I look back at poems that I've written, and I'm like, wow, this concept is not something I would really fully understand until years later, you know.
excuse me.
That's okay.
I just sneezed. And thank you, Keisha. I do want to mention to you in a few of your responses, it drops for a second and then
Oh.
comes back. I don't know if you
Oh,
can
let me
shift where you are or
yeah,
shift
let
your
me.
phone.
Well, I'm sitting by the window, so I hope this is good.
Okay.
I don't know. I hope this is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, your experience and your all these wonderful people you interviewed and all these wonderful journalistic experiences you had. How did that also merge into your creative
Oh, that
writing?
was you know, when and I think this is one of the reasons I love Lucille Clifton is because she really used every part of her life in her poetry, like every part of everyday life.
Mm,
And my feeling was that when you get out and you travel and you meet the people of the country and you have these experiences with like lots of different people, you get insights. And I would like after I'm done with the shoot or whatever, I may go back to the hotel and that was my way of decompressing actually, and just like that's what I did for leisure. I was like, here's my observations, you know. And then I started to
mm,
really take it seriously. I think I shifted
mm-hmm.
from journalism for a very simple reason. It was a gig economy kind of job before gigs were a
Right,
thing, right? So it was right. It was project work.
right.
And when you're 20 something and you just have yourself to be responsible for, that's okay. But then I became a parent at 30, and I was like, I had
Mm-hmm.
no health insurance. It was very practical reason. I went into academia. I was like, oh no,
Yeah,
we're not about to do this. We have to come back to TV at later
right.
date. But I had to take my skills and go elsewhere. So, I got into like communications and higher ed and speech writing, all that stuff, which I enjoyed. It was fine. Um, but then when I got into academia, I was like, you know what? I need to focus on my writing. I need to get my MFA. I need to like put myself in a program so I have a structure and I can build a community and meet people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just exactly what I did. Although my MFA is in fiction, which people don't know. It's not poetry.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. That's so funny because that's one of the questions that I was going to ask you, if you
Oh, I
also write
have.
fiction, because I can see you doing that based on
Hmm.
reading
I
your
have published,
poems,
I think 2 years
you
ago, a
know.
short story of mine was published in Quelly. I think well, now, it was
Oh, yeah.
2018, I'm pretty sure, but we're only in the beginning of 2021. And then I have a short story in the Mom Egg Review, and I have a short fiction elsewhere. But, you know, if any goal I have this year is to really like complete this longer work of fiction, that I've been sitting on. And it's harder for me, I have to say, because there's a level of anonymity that I can preserve in
Mm-hmm.
poetry just because of the abstraction, right? Which in fiction, I feel a little more
Yeah.
exposed as I'm exploring these characters. And then also, I think I'm more adept at um, presenting the emotional reality of a moment through the metaphors in poems, through similes, right? But then in dialogue
Yeah.
it is a bit challenging for me, because like you observed, I am a bit solitary, so I'm in my head a lot, and I'm not necessarily listening to how people talk because I'm picking up on how they feel. I'm more paying attention to the vibe. The vibe that I get takes me on a little thought experiment, and I think about things, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really, I'm not so into the mundane. Like playwriting would be really hard for me because it's a lot of talking. It's just like talking, talking, talking,
Wow.
talking, talking.
It's true. Yeah,
Yep.
it's true. And so, in terms of collaborations, I know that you're around a lot of great artists, even, when you're doing events, and obviously you're networking and in terms of being published. What kind of collaborations do you enjoy and that really feed you in terms of work with other artists, or performance, or even when you're uh, thinking about
Mm,
publishing and those
I
kinds of
love the
things?
merging of the art forms because I like surround sound experiences. I like engaging all of the senses. So I definitely love, love, love on a deep level music, and any opportunity to work with a musician, I jump at it because and actually some of the poems in this book have been set to music. A friend composed some music for them, and they're linked in the ebook and SoundCloud, so anybody can go listen. But I love music. I love music, and it's no surprise my daughter is like a natural musician. She sings, she plays guitar, like she's really
Oh,
musical.
wow.
And I also like to collaborate, like with other visual artists. I had a residency at the Brooklyn Public Library in 2018. I won their artist in residence contest. Somebody sent it to me. It was like, you should. I applied on a whim. I've never gotten anything like that before. And I was like, oh, I'm the artist. Okay. So I had studio time.
Okay, artists, and say that again. Was that
Yeah, the
Brooklyn? You said the Brooklyn
Brooklyn
Library,
Public
or
Library had an
the
artist in residence program in 2018,
wonderful?
and my art is still hanging in that space. And they give you, it's like six
Uh
weeks
huh.
and you have to come in once a week. You have open studio. You're supposed to like give a community presentation at the end of it, and they give you like a laptop. It was wonderful. And working at a college at the time, the summer Fridays kind of fit right in. So I was already off on Fridays. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I worked it. That's what I mean about working with what you got. I very much had a city University of New York administrative job, a union job. Like, right.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
And
Right. The
with
stability.
that,
Yes.
I was able to buy
Mm-hmm.
a townhouse in Brooklyn in my 30s, and I am proud of that. Like my husband and I didn't do it by
Mm-hmm.
myself. We bought a house.
Good. Very nice. I was wondering when you were going to mention that gentleman. I'm like, Keisha sounds like she's
Oh
just
no,
doing all of
definitely
this on
not.
her own. I'm like, oh,
Oh
hold
yeah,
up, because
no,
I know you got a spouse
he's
now.
very, very supportive. And we're definitely a team. And a lot of the pictures I post whenever we're doing stuff in the arts, he's always there and the kids are always there. Like, so it's like
That's
that's how the
wonderful.
family time is spent, which and he's also an artist that
Mm-hmm.
at my book launch. he's a teacher, but he's also a visual artist. And at my book launch in December, I displayed some of his artwork as well. So
Wow. So you all both
yeah, no,
really support each
that
other.
has to be.
This is great. You're similar to, just wanted to mention one of my recent interviews. You probably know the writer Jabari
So
Asim. He lives he lives in a household with
mhm.
artists. His wife is a playwright, and she previously was a children's librarian. And he just talked to me about how they often, support and collab with one another. And it sounds like you have a similar, nice
Oh yeah,
symbiotic
because
experience.
it's really hard, like raising children in New York City. It's expensive. It's hard. We work hard. We both work. It's funny. We met. I was in television. He was in the music industry, and then we both transitioned to higher to education at the same time, which is kind of ironic.
Oh,
I went,
yeah.
you know.
More, and that's how you know he's a good guy. He wasn't just trying
Oh
to keep
no,
doing the
no.
little gigs here and there. He was going to get
Right.
his
And that
stability
so
for
you
his
got to have the
family.
same values really. I mean, it's really important. So yeah, he's a high school teacher and then I was working at the university and he's also now teaching college. So like we were in that ecosystem of education
Mm-hmm.
and I only started doing this nonprofit work last year. So that was a little shift for me after like a very long
Okay.
time in higher ed.
Do you find that also, I've heard people say higher ed
Mm.
is good. Well, education in general is good for writers because you have your breaks. Do you feel the
It
same with
depends what it
nonprofit
is.
work?
And I think what I did is it depends what it is. I got myself to, I think I was at CUNY for like 15 or 16 years at different places, different schools. And but by the time I left there, I was at a very like a senior leadership level, right? So now the way things are for me is I kind of have the freedom to kind of dictate my schedule a little bit more than if I were coming in at a different level. So my thing in life is it's always like I have to dictate my schedule. So I will agree to do whatever work I'm doing, but I need my autonomy and I need my boundaries. And I feel that I'm at a level as a senior manager where I can
Yeah.
enforce that, where maybe somebody else maybe doesn't feel like they can, but I certainly can. And so I do enforce
Yeah.
boundaries. That's like a deal breaker for me. And I always tell it to everyone, I'm an artist. I speak, I read at places. I give talks and I need time with my family. So if that don't work for you, it's not going to work for me. We got to like have to.
Wow. Do you mean you tell an
I did.
employer
I
that, like
told
in an
the
interview
place.
or a first meeting or
No, I
something?
told them,
Oh
I
my
asked them a
goodness.
question. I'm like, you are aware
Uh-huh.
of who I am publicly. Cause yeah,
That's funny. Not funny, but
because
I've
you know
just
what
never,
it is. It's
wow,
like,
I've,
no,
oh
the
my
thing
God,
is
I've never thought to do that.
I've always worked in jobs that were adjacent in some way to like what I'm doing as an artist. So higher education is full of artists, television, yeah, TV production is
True.
full of
It's true.
creatives. So nothing I was doing was weird or like it's not like I'm right. It's not like I'm
For
an
them.
accountant
Okay.
and I'm a poet on the side. People wouldn't understand that, but people do understand, like,
Right.
you're a hyphenate. It's like she's a TV producer, she's an author, all these things. Yeah, these things go together.
And
So I
she's a
do
mom.
respectfully,
Yeah.
when I work with people, I tell them who I am
Hmm.
because who I am is non-negotiable and who I am is public. So anything I say publicly, I would say on the job. So you have to be okay with me as a whole person to come into your space. And if you're not comfortable with that, I am not for you because I am not willing to cut my locks. I am not willing to change anything about myself for a check. I'm just not.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I know that I have the bona fides and the honest, solid credentials of quantifiable work that I've done that can get me what I want. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not gonna compromise who I am ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, Keisha. And what you're talking about, we've been talking about your writing and your journey as a poet and an artist, but now you're getting into this space of you're talking about self-worth and
That's right.
self-love
You
and
have
knowing
to.
your
You
value.
have to. You have to just be honest with what you're willing to negotiate about. Like, you can always negotiate. You can always ask, you know, um, are you how people feel, their comfort level. Like, you can always ask. And I did ask because I feel like a person of my age range, which is in the 45 to 50 range, I don't have time to waste to figure
Mm-hmm.
out if you're going to be upset about something. Like,
Sure.
I don't have time for that. So just tell me now. If you don't like it, it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And so, but what I find interesting and amazing about what you're saying, I understand that first part, but the fact that what you're inferring is that you have faith that if you walk away from that particular opportunity or whatever it may be, that you're actually still going to get
Oh,
what you want or
oh
what you need.
yes,
Do
a
you
hundred
do you
percent.
feel that?
There's got to be one job for. I always tell people there is one job. New York City, where I live, there's 8 million people here. There is one job for you. It may not be. There is something you could do, and when I look at the way that I've put my career together, I have excellent relationships with people. I don't burn any bridges, and I add value wherever I go. I do my best. You can guarantee I'm going to do the best job and maybe a little extra. And then so I have this stuff that I've done, and anybody can verify it, and
Mm,
and anybody can look at it. And if they find that I can add value, then we can work together, because we can't operate out of a place of fear. And I'm not being like super woo woo. Like, I am
yeah.
very spiritual, yes, and I am guided by my intuition, yes, but
Yes.
I'm also extremely practical, and I understand. You negotiate with people. There's no harm in asking politely for what you want. There's no harm in that. All they can do is say no. I've had in my early career some very uncomfortable interviews, and there's a power dynamic there as being a very young person in the workforce. Sometimes people abuse their power over you and say things, but I look at that and I put it in
It's true.
my little notebook in my mind of what not to say when you're supervising or mentoring people. What not to do. Don't do that, because that scarred me,
Mm,
or that really. I had an interviewer
wow.
tell me once, before the interview even got started. I was very young. I was in my early 20s, and it was in broadcast. He said, "Well, you probably, I show up for
Okay.
the interview, but you probably want to do Black stories, and that's not our audience." And I'm like, that's the first thing you say to me? Like,
What?
right? And so as a young,
Whoa.
no,
Like they didn't even ask.
yeah. And it was
They
like
just like assumed.
it was very uncomfortable to be dismissed. But, technically, I guess somebody felt that I should be interviewed, and whoever was interviewing me probably got his schedule that day and was like, "Who the hell is Keisha? Let me just tell her it's not gonna work."
Right.
But you know what? I had another interview these are all media outlets, right? I had an interview at a paper, and they've
Mm-hmm.
straight up told me, "Well, at the time in my career, I was like, I don't know, 26 or 27. They say, "You've only written for Black publications. We're not sure you really know how to write." That was told to my face. "We're not sure you know how to write." And right. It
I can
happens so
believe it.
often.
That's
It happens.
disgusting.
So I took note of it, and
Oh
I
my
was like, because
gosh.
my
Well, what ended up
you
happening
see,
with
so my
that? And what did
nature
you
is not.
say?
You'll never get a rise out of me. That's just not how I am. You're not going to get a rise out of me, but I'm
Oh,
going to
I see.
quietly
Yeah.
remember that, and I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to remember it, and I'm not going to refer people to your place, and I'm going to tell them, yes, I will. And
And you'll probably write about
at
it.
some point,
Because that's
mhm,
because you know what, Keisha, that's what I do in some way, shape, or form. Don't show up in my writing,
exactly.
please.
Exactly. And the thing is too, it's like it's almost funny. It's like people think they're decimating your ego. And to me, as a person with wisdom, I'm laughing at them. I'm actually feeling pity, because I'm looking at them and I'm like, you're such an angry, bitter, and stuck person that you would take the time to come out of your face
Yeah.
like that to a young person. How like frustrated do you
Right.
have to be to even
To even do exactly,
limited,
and
you know?
limited, very
Right. And I
limited in
said,
their
okay, I
capacity
wouldn't
and
be happy here.
thinking.
So I kept, you keep pushing. That's the thing I want to tell young people. It's like, you must continue to try. Like, these things are discouraging, but that you look at it from a different angle. You say, well, where haven't I tapped? What else could I do? Who can I talk to? And then you just always be respectful,
Mm,
and you always bring something to the table. Don't just be asking people for stuff. You got to bring some ideas. Don't
I
give
like
away your
that.
ideas
Yeah.
now. Don't give them away for free, but
Yeah.
you know, offer me something that we can have a conversation about. And I even tell my, like, the young people I work with, who are helping me now. I'm like, okay, you're doing this work with me, and it's awesome, but think about the things that I want you to create. What do you want for your portfolio? And let's see in the middle what we can create, because I'm here to also help you build your portfolio. That's what mentorship is about. It's not just me taking, this is good karma. We
Sure.
can't operate, these bad things come back to people. People don't believe that. It absolutely, you may not understand how it comes back to you, but when you are foul, it comes back to you.
It really, I'm sure that it does. And I've talked to a person, I know someone who feels like, and we've had conversations over and over, and they always say to me, people, there's no such thing as karma. It doesn't exist, because there are people that they never see it. And how is it there are people that do crimes and this and that, and some of them get away with it? I'm like, yeah, you might not see it, but
Right.
maybe
You won't
karma
have to
is,
see
it's
it.
not your business to see the person that, did you wrong,
That's right.
get their just desserts or whatever. That's
And
between
sometimes
God
sometimes these
and them.
individuals, their punishment is their own mental torment. Their punishment is that they can never be happy or satisfied with what they have, because they're so envious of other people. And that's their punishment, is that they can never be self-aware enough to see what is tormenting them, and they can't see it. And that's not my business. I'm here to spread love, to leave something of value in the world. And my
Mm,
primary role on this earth is to be the primary teacher of my children, so that they could do whatever they want. And I can set up an environment where they can just be themselves. That's all I want. That's all. I don't want very many things. I want to be able to do my art, enjoy the earth, travel some places, and see my kids flourish, and really don't
mm-hmm.
want anything else.
And it's
That's right.
simple, and it's just not asking for much. I think you engage with me, you and several others, on my recent Facebook post. I
Uh-huh.
called it Friday Thoughts, where I asked if you could ever
Mm,
want too much in your life. Can you ever want too much? And how do you know if you do? And are other people
that's
the judge of
interesting.
whether
Yeah,
you're wanting too much?
it's
You
such an
know,
interesting
what do
question,
you
because for
think about
me,
that?
my understanding of how life works is that you can never want too much if what you want is to be the best expression of yourself that you can be. If what you want is for there to be like
Mm,
peace, and for people to flourish, unfair systems to be abolished, you can never want too much. But I think that if what you want is only focused on your own gratification, then having too much of it can damage you. It can damage you. Eating too much can damage you. But even also being
mm,
overly self-absorbed, so that there are people who have um, body dysmorphic, like disorders of they keep having surgeries, or this is when we're focused too much on
sure.
ourselves. You can never want too much if what you
Mm,
want is to root for everybody else that they also make it, because the universe rewards that. I believe that
Sure.
and I think back to Bob Marley, when he said, if my life is just for me, I don't want it. It's a famous quote of his, and it reflected in his art. You
Mm,
see, it multiplied. Like, what he wanted was for everyone to be,
it's true. And he was like,
oh
an
yes,
astral star on the
oh
earth,
yes, yes.
just a walking sage. Just I love him, and I still listen to his music. Let me tell
Hmm.
you something. I'll tell you, because you can relate, Keisha, because you're from Jamaica. I His music, along
Oh
with some
yeah,
others,
I
got me
believe it.
through writing my dissertation. No lie. I used to stay up listening late at night. We're talking pulling all-nighters for a day or two, and I'm listening to Bob Marley, and I'm listening to Coltrane, and I'm listening to Brazilian lounge, and the most spiritual music,
Mhm.
the most music that spoke to me. And that's what kept me
Oh
from
yes,
probably
yes.
being
I'm
out
telling
of
you,
my mind with stress.
there's so many layers. That's why I love music, because not only is the instrumentation a certain frequency that your rhythms in your body wants to get in sync with that. That's why we dance. You want to get in sync with the music. So there's a soothing
Hmm.
aspect to that. And even dogs and cats like music. Like, there's a soothing aspect to, because it's just rhythm, right? They like it. But then
Yes.
also, now, the poetry of it. He was a master poet because what he said was plain and really simple, but really profound analysis of human nature. Profound.
True.
It's like there's just so
Hmm.
many things. One of my favorite Bob songs is Babylon System, and the song, I think that's the right title of the song, but I think,
Hmm.
yeah, this is, we refuse to be what you wanted us to be. We are what we are, and that's the way it's going to be. And that's such an important statement about Black struggle. It's like all of these years of indoctrination and colonization, it's like we are who we are, and nobody's been able to change that. And the
Hmm.
continuity of culture is incredible to me. Like our music and
Mm.
spirituality, nobody can erase that. So to me, it's like, why? Who is a fool enough to even think they can, like, fundamentally alter people the way that these people show up on Earth? Like a fool. A fool. That's right.
People who
That's right. It's
people who
like,
don't know God. That's
yeah,
what I believe.
yeah. We all
Because
here, and we
yes.
show up however we show up for a reason that is, it is mysterious to us, but we know that we're intact. We're intact. Then nobody needs to change us. We're here to, you know, refine our skills, and to see what we can do. That's what I think. I think we're here to see, like, what can I really do? And you see it with, like, gymnasts and athletes. They are the best representation in physicality of, like, I'm going to see what this body can do. Yeah, but writers and artists do it too. They're like,
That's so true.
let me see what I could do.
Mm.
And, because it's so cerebral
Hmm.
sometimes, I think it's easier for us to get imbalanced because we're in our heads. So we need to go outside for a walk. We need to make sure we talk to our family. Like, you can't just be in your head all the time.
Right. You have to be balanced. I tell people, I'm a big, big walker outdoors. I mean, I do other activities, but I love walking outdoors. And I tell people who have not been going outdoors, especially during this quarantine, and I'm talking
Right.
in nature, I don't mean to the grocery store, that we are living organisms. So how can you not go and connect with the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the botanics and other live organisms? We need that. We need it like
That's right.
putting a cord
Listen,
into a
the
socket.
kids
we
and
we
this was
need
my
that
son's
energy.
idea last Saturday. He was like, let's go to the Botanic Garden. It was 27 degrees outside, but we went, and we paid, we went in, and all four of us,
I
and we
love
walked
it.
around, and the sun was out, and we saw the little koi fish. They're still out there. I'm like, I thought the fish had to come inside, but I guess they stay out there. And
Wow. And so they
It's
were
open.
allowing you
It's
to
open.
go there?
Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
it not
Yeah. I mean,
closed right
very few
now? Or,
people were
oh, it's
walking
open?
around in
Yeah.
there, but it's open. You can take a walk in there, and amazingly too, you
Mm,
see, when you walk in nature, you notice some things. And some of the plants, the buds are already visible, even in this cold weather. It's getting ready for the spring. It's getting ready, and then it's going to be so nice starting
sure
in like late
is.
March, and it's just going to be bursting by April, May, and I get a lot out of that. I get recharged by nature, definitely.
Hmm. That's good to hear because I don't hear a lot of people say that these days. And it's like, I really feel like
Oh
it's the
yeah.
answer to like physical ailments,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly if you're not feeling too good mentally, it's like, okay, when was the last time you went to the park or just went kind of sightseeing, or even for a nice drive where you don't have a
Yes, yes,
destination,
yes.
but you're
We
just going
need
to go
to. I
look
mean, even if it's
around, you
cold, just
know?
bundle up and take a walk, because your attention will be drawn to things around you, and that is going to give you a clue to how you're
Hmm.
feeling inside. Because I would say your brain is incredible. It's recording everything, right, that's happening around you, right? But you may not be aware
Yeah.
or focus on what your mind is recording, right? But when you meditate and you look into your thoughts, you will realize you have perfect recall. You can recall what was happening. So as we walk outside and stuff, you pay attention to what you're drawn to, because that's a clue to how you're feeling. Are you always seeing garbage? Are you always seeing birds? What is it that you're drawn to? When I was pregnant, for some reason, I feel like I only saw other pregnant women. That's what it just, but it's what I noticed. They were always there. It's what
Wow.
I noticed. Right. I just noticed it
Yes.
because
They
that
were
was the
always
condition that I
there.
was in. So you as a human, this is
Hmm.
what we naturally do. Whatever we're feeling inside, we look to connect it to what's outside, which is why if you have a negative perception or inside of you is always negative, you're always going to find something wrong out there. You're always going to find what's wrong. We're not going to see what is right. So we have to work on that, because if you have a
Wow.
disposition toward pessimism, it's very hard. And that's why depression, has to be taken seriously, because
Mm.
some people cannot just snap out of it, and they need like clinical help. Yeah. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. That is so much wisdom that you're sharing, Keisha. I mean, you are just wow, talk about being a
Yeah.
griot, a true griot in the sense of the word. Wisdom, storytelling, the written word, the spoken word, the
Well,
art, the
thank you.
visual
I'm
art,
doing
all
my
of it. You
best, and I
encompass all
I
of it.
do hope, that that stuff can really obviously bring in some material compensation, but that's not why I'm doing it. But we going to work that out, cuz that's the thing. Sometimes we're afraid to ask to get paid for things, which I'm getting better at, cuz you got yeah. Yeah.
Speak it into
Yeah,
existence,
we got to,
Keisha, like
because
you've
it's
done
an
with so many
exchange.
other
It's like,
things.
I'm going to do this, so I think I should be compensated, and I've gotten better at that. I've gotten better at that.
But how about too, Keisha, when you look for, I love, and I was tweeting,
Okay.
I want you to know I'm listening to you, but I'm also tweeting some of these wise things that you're sharing, and letting people know this episode will
Mhm.
be released. And here are some of the things that you're sharing. And the fact that you said you have like a formula of, okay, I'm going to apply for so many fellowships, so many publishing, this, that. So, what about when you
Oh
look for
yeah.
that? Look
Yeah.
for
No,
the
I
ones that
have,
have the prize attached,
I'm still,
you know?
working that out. I'm working it out. Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing that. Okay. And I know you know. But I thought I'd mention too, because for anyone
Mhm.
listening, this could be very inspiring for them, to hear you. Well, it will be inspiring to hear you, and to hear some of these solutions
Mhm.
in an
Mhm. Yeah.
artistic life.
Yes, our
You
nation
know,
should hopefully there'll be more investment in the arts. One would hope. But we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
True. True. And so
Hmm.
I have, Keisha, I have a
Of
few more
course, yeah.
questions for you. Do you have time? Okay, so I would like to know, if you have this in mind,
Okay, so this
what
is
is your writing routine?
this is I always tell people, you have to make the time. This is such an oversimplification, but at different times in my life, the routine was different. So when I was in graduate school, my husband was also simultaneously, like, our lives are very parallel. Like, he was getting his master's, I was getting my master's, and we had a toddler and then like a newborn. So what we would do on the weekend is, like, I would say, okay, on Sunday for 5 hours, I'm going to Starbucks to write, and no one is allowed to call me. And then I would come home and we would switch places, and then he would go. And, yeah, we did that for a long time. We did that. So then now,
I
the
love
kids are,
that.
obviously, they're teenagers, so whatever. But I try to give myself the morning. I'm going to be honest. In the pandemic, I have not been productive. I won't use the word productive. I'm going to say that I, like everybody else in many places, has been dealing with anxiety and uncertainty, and just like the monotony of just being in the house 24/7. So I'm going to give myself some leeway and say, like, I'm not writing right now because I'm just trying to get my head. I never thought I'd live through a plague. Here we are, right? Who thinks, like, you read about plagues in history, who thinks you're going to live through a pandemic? But here we are, and I'm grateful everyone's healthy. So I'm just trying to, like, minimize stress and just, be healthy and balanced. But generally, prior to this situation, a good time for me was the mornings, and I would do it in short bursts. Like, I would take my daughter to school, and then I would take her early, and she liked that too, because she, when you get there early, have breakfast, and she would play with your friends.
Hmm.
And then I would go from, like, I think it was like from 8 p.m. to like 8:45. I would go to a coffee shop, and that's all I did, is I would write. And then I would hop on the train, and at the time I was working, the train ride was like 20 minutes to my job, and I would get there, and I would do, like, I'm doing like the 10 to 6 kind of time frame, and that's what I would do every day, every single day. And that's how I wrote my books. For fiction, though, I need more sustained blocks of time, and I think that's probably a deterrent, like why I haven't really gone very far, because I need, like, much more uninterrupted time, like a whole day to just, focus on that. But my daughter helped me come up with a schedule for this novel that was my thesis, my MFA thesis, that I should revisit because I've been really bad about that. But she calculated it for me, like, based on the page number of, like, a novel, like the page count. And she was like, "Oh, when we do this calculation, it breaks down to 5 pages a week." And she looks at me, she's 12. She's like, "You could do 5 pages a week." And I was like, something, you're right.
Oh,
5 pages a
wow.
week. Like, if you can just commit, think about it. If you can write 3 to 5 pages every week, you will have something. It may not be fantastic, but you'll have something. And something is better than nothing. And if, who's
Yeah.
quitting their job? Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't even want to do that. I think I would be lonely. Like, I would be lonely. Like, well, I think
Really? Oh my gosh. Do you think you would just
I
love
think
to
that I
write
would
full time
love
though,
the
Keisha,
space and
if you
freedom
could?
to have blocks of time to write. But I think that no matter what, I would probably either be running a business or something where I would be creating other things, like films or what have you, because I do have that background in, like, film and television, and I like I like making visual stories. Like, there are other kinds of content that I enjoy, and some of those things require a team, and I do enjoy that a little bit, when we're making something together. So, like, I don't know if I would be happy
Hmm.
simply being alone all the time and writing, although I enjoy alone time, but I do like other collaborations with people where we get to make something, and I like the idea that there's a finite time on it. Like we make something and then we're done with that. And then maybe I work with another group and we make something and we're done with that. And I think I like to work that way, Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds like the best thing. And I like that it sounds like you definitely have a formula that works for you. And I think that's what's most important. It's not what other people do or writing on a
Oh
schedule. I
God.
think I did NaNoWriMo once some years ago, but I don't like anyone putting me on a
I
schedule for
know.
anything. I don't like having to check in like that with my creativity to do
I
something.
know. I
It just
know.
doesn't,
I think
it
like if
doesn't work for
if
me.
there's something in like see, I think of the year in like quarters or even just like a 6-month thing. And if you can like push and go real hard for like that little burst of time, you can then stop and then, chill. But I like to work that way. It's like, okay, for 12 weeks, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to not go out, and I'm going to do this. But then after that, I need a break. That can't be like my forever life. I need to like do some leisure things. I like to travel, I like to travel and, see the world. And,
Wow.
I try to go somewhere every year. Oh, no,
Do you
probably. That's
still
the
want
thing
to do
right
that though,
now.
even with everything going
Normally,
on?
I try to
I,
every summer give these kids some experience,
mm-hmm.
some really nice experience, even whether it's local or we go, overseas, or try to, within my budget, give them an experience. But right now, I'm not going to go anywhere because I just don't know. It's too uncertain. And I have been successfully staying well. So I don't want to risk it. I don't want, I would love to just plan a
Yeah.
summer vacation someplace like, and since we're all working virtually, it's so easy to just say, okay, I could just go to X place for however long. But I don't know. I don't know. I have to give it some thought, I tell you. But I think we need something because it's been rough. When you think about it, my daughter's done the entire 7th grade in her bedroom. Like, you know,
You know what? And it's real. I mean, that's what so many of
yeah,
our students are going through.
it's
Virtual all the
really
way K
hard
to
for them
12,
though because
college, just
developmentally,
virtual
this is
learning.
unnatural. This is the time where they're supposed to be learning independence. They're supposed to be making dumb mistakes. They're supposed to be with their friends. Like, this is the time of life for that. And I feel that when we get out of this, we're going to have a lot of developmentally, emotionally stunted adults who didn't have the time, the opportunity to be like wild and crazy in their teen and college years. They just didn't because they've been going to school in their house, and they're not hanging out with people. They're not getting a chance to push their limits. That's what you do when you're a teenager. I know I did. I mean, I had a fantastic teenage experience of like mischief and fun and like everything that goes along with taking risks, but never really in real danger. But going to little parties here and there and like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I got into so much trouble. A friend's cousin had a car and I went and I drove it and I was like 16 and my dad found out and he's like, "You're not supposed to be driving." And I got into so much trouble, but I wanted to drive the car, and that was dangerous because we didn't know how to drive. Like why were we driving around in this car? But that's when you do that stuff when you're a teenager. But I even though I got in trouble, it was worth it. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be defiant. I'm gonna go out
Wow.
and drive and get in this car and
Wow.
go and play around. Oh
Yes.
gosh.
That's amazing. Okay, so lastly, before we, do you want to read any
You know what?
poems or
Why
do you
don't
want to
we do
save
that? Why
them
don't
for
we make
tomorrow's
tomorrow?
IG
Yeah, let's
Live,
save it and
Keisha?
hopefully folks will tune in and
Yes. Yes. because we can see your face and
Oh,
hear the
thank
inflection,
you. Thank you so
and let
much.
me add your beautiful face,
Yeah,
not
that'll
just
be
your
fun.
face.
Yes.
So I think that'll be great. It'll be like a real live reading. So I am definitely going to promo that
Okay.
again today and tag some
Hmm.
people. Um, so lastly, Keisha, how do you know
That's a
when a
good
collection is
question
finished?
because yeah, it's a lot of weeding out and I think my work experience as an editor, like as an editor in chief of a magazine for a while, I'm really tough on myself about not including things that don't serve the collection, and I try to look thematically and like, what am I saying? What's the through line? What is like the general idea, um, of this collection, and what poems would most potently like exemplify that idea, and whichever ones, even if they're a little bit similar to another one, if they're not as strong, they got to go. And that's so I'm not, when I'm writing, I'm almost never writing with a collection in mind. I am simply
Mm-hmm.
documenting my observations, and the documentation, the form, I like to write poems, so it's like journaling. They always end up being poems because that's just what I enjoy in terms of language, right? So these things that I'm documenting over time,
Sure.
after a period
Mm-hmm.
of time, I step back and I look at them and I see, is there a theme? Like, what am I talking about? And if there is, then maybe this is a collection. Maybe this is an idea that I'm trying to look at from different angles, and all of these poems together would make that point stronger. And I know people approach things differently, but generally, because of my time constraints, I'm gonna be honest, because of parenting and working, I am in the moment writing when I can. And so I'm just doing the best I can. And then I go back and look at them later and see if there's a collection. But I would like to be more intentional in the future in terms of a project. And, now that I've written 3 books, I think I can start
Mm-hmm.
thinking that way a bit more. I would love to do some persona poems that kind of explore the matriarchal line in my family. I have a lot of questions. There's so much mystery. Well, for me anyway, I think for a lot of Black folks, it's just like
Mm.
the women are not documented, like who they were.
Sure.
It's not recorded really, right? It's not really recorded. Um,
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Does that mean you would go to
I did
Jamaica to do
try
some
to look
interviews
up
and
some
gathering of
records and all of
information?
that, but I think I'm going to I'm going to use what I know, and then I'm going to use my imagination. I'm going to use what I know, and I'm going to use what I know about I'm going to use what I know about the time period they were living in, and then I'm going to use oral tradition, like oral things that were passed orally, and I'm going to then use my imagination from there, because there's no way, my great grandmother, who did hold
Mm.
me when I was a baby, I don't remember her, but she was born in 1898. And so prior to that, like, I don't know anything except a name. There's no
Mm.
story that I have about the personality of my great great grandmother. I just don't know. It's just not documented. It's not, nobody, like, it's not
Mm-hmm.
written anywhere. I don't know. So I would have to use my imagination, you know? Yeah. And who knows if that imagination is really
Wow.
intuition or a channeled message, or who the hell knows? Because, maybe that ancestor wants to say something. I don't know till I start writing, like, what's going to show up. I mean, I'm just going to do it and see what happens.
Sure. And do you
Well,
have other
my
writers in
my
your family? Are
father
you the
is a
the
very good
first?
writer, and he had always wanted to write a book, and he told me, now he's retired now, and he told me he's writing his book. So I'm super excited if he does that. I would. Yeah, I hope he does it. He is a great
Wow,
storyteller.
that's wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful storyteller, extremely funny. And he's always the
Uh-huh.
guy at the relatives' weddings in our family who they ask him to MC because he's really funny. So he's the storyteller. And my sister actually went to Cooper Union. She's a very talented visual artist. And she's not actively painting right now, but she's got that natural gift. And she's very good with like anatomy, like, the human body. Like she does these great paintings. So there's yeah, I don't, you see, that's the thing about it. It's like, where do these things come from? We don't
Mm.
know. We just there must have been some writers. There must have been, I don't know, must have been. Yeah. So
Exactly. You know,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
ancestral connection, as you were saying,
Oh yes.
is
Oh,
deep.
I
They
for
have
sure. And
stories that they want to
the
tell,
challenge of modern living, is to get quiet enough on a regular basis so that you can hear the stories, because you got to get up, you go to your job,
Mm-hmm.
you're with your kids. It's
Mm.
hard, but this is I'm also grateful for the path I've traveled professionally, and I wouldn't change anything, but I have to just be really intentional about making quiet time, you know. Yeah.
True. And I think
Yes, it's
that's
so
wise
important.
advice for me and all of us, truly. Hmm. And so, Keisha, where can we find your work, and how can we best follow and
Okay.
support you?
Well,
Just
my
to note
name
that
is
as we
usually
are
what I use on
ending.
all my social media handles. So it's Keisha-Gaye Anderson. So my website is keishagaye.inc, which is .ink. Um, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on SoundCloud. So just search me up and follow, and you'll find me. Yep. Well,
Wonderful.
I love
And
it.
I certainly did, Keisha,
I
because I
love
think
it.
I'm on all of your social media.
Yes.
And so thank you for being in my network. Thank you. You're very inspiring. And, I wish you the best with all of with
Yeah,
your
thank you
writing and
so
your
much. And
creativity
it
and your
was so
family
wonderful
in
talking to you. And I'm
2021 and
glad we're
beyond.
connected. And I'm wishing the same for you. Like, who knows, but we got to be optimistic. We don't know what the future holds, right? Yes.
Exactly. That is so true. Well, Keisha, I
Hmm.
look forward to talking with you again tomorrow, and I'll be in touch about that.
Oh,
But in
you
any
too. Thank you
case,
so much.
have a
This was great.
wonderful day, and thank you again for this interview.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And you were just listening to episode 18 of Nerdacity Podcast featuring poet Keisha-Gaye Anderson. Follow the podcast and tweet me on Twitter at NerdacityPod1. You can also follow Nerdacity Podcast on Instagram at Nerdacity Podcast. Support future episodes of this podcast by giving a small donation. Visit anchor.fm/DuEwa Fraser/support or send to paypal.me/DuEwa World. Visit my website at duewaworld.com. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.